Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This, of course, is the podcast that is made for real producers, by real producers, and with none other than Tampa Bay's real producers, as well as powered by Top Producers Nation, which is a platform designed to help agents all over the country in your desired markets become a top producer in whichever market that you're in. So you can check that out at topproducersnation.com and learn a little bit more about how to do that. Today, we get to hang out with one of our guests who's been around for a while. I feel like I've known Cristan for many years now. We have featured him. It was more than once, actually, now that we've featured you in Tampa Bay Real Producers, but it was a few years back that we featured you for the first time. And so Cristan Fadal, broker here with Fadal and Co. Fadal and team, right?
We went out, yes.
Fadal and Co. So, Cristan, good to have you here, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate Don. I want to thank you for having me, and I mean for what you do, the real estate community.
No doubt, it's our pleasure.
It's
absolutely. Cristan is very well known, especially in the South Tampa market around there. Lives in Davis Island, I believe,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Oh man, Davis Islands is a place to be. So I'm gonna pump up that while we talk today.
How could he not? How could he not? Great place to be here. Great neighborhood here in South Tampa for sure.
It is.
So, Cristan, for people who might not know your story much yet, we'll start there.
Okay.
How did you grow up in this market? If not, how did you get yourself to Tampa, and eventually how did you get yourself interested in real estate?
Yeah. So I started. Great question. So I started. Was born in upstate New York. Moved to Houston when I was fairly young and lived in Houston, Texas, and didn't come to Tampa till 1990.
Okay.
So actually had 2 years of high school here. Went to USF. So I feel like I'm a native Floridian now that I've been here this long. But I actually was involved in the corporate world. So I thought it would be a great idea to become an accountant and work behind the scenes.
A little bit different than real estate.
Huh? A little bit different, just a tad.
Even though the numbers are probably still important.
Well, I figured, hey, I want to understand the back end of business.
Sure.
Right? So work for a big five accounting firm that is no longer with us.
Okay.
And got involved really doing both the accounting and the systems implementations, and then started doing kind of the selling side. So the sales of the software, the sales of working with customers, understanding what their needs were, and not forcing them the solution, but finding a solution for them. And so that, but the big thing with that is I was traveling around the U.S.
Okay.
I wasn't home, and I really wanted to find an opportunity to some type of business that would allow me to stay local.
Were you always interested in real estate, or?
I was from an investment standpoint. I always wanted to do an investment standpoint, and so that's really what got me interested in it. And then I'm like, well, maybe I can actually sell real estate. So I thought it would be easy, and when I got my license in 2005, and I was going to do it part-time and make all this money doing it part-time.
Yep. So you were still working as an accountant.
I was still, yes. And I don't think I had a sale for the first couple of years, because if you're not working
tough
a business,
to do it part-time.
It is. So,
so you weren't one of those rising stars that we featured.
I was definitely not a rising star.
Your first year wasn't exactly.
I was a falling star at that point.
A falling star, yes. Maybe that's another section that we should add to Real Producers.
Yeah,
the falling star section.
And I'm going to be upfront and honest on this. So I got my license in 2005, and then 2007 came, and and real estate was hot. It was hot. Everything was going. People were selling it. You didn't even have to just contract, people signed it. So I was like, man, this is great. I had a great business in consulting, but I really wanted to be home. And I said, I'm going to quit that. I'm going to go to real estate full time. So I started full-time real estate in between 2007 and 2008. Okay. So right when everything was
perfect
crashing.
Timing.
Yeah, I time very,
Nothing
very
could
well.
go wrong.
Nothing at all. And I didn't know what to do. I started with Century 21.
Yep.
So that was my first brokerage. And they were that particular franchisee was kind of hands off. Like, hey, build your business. And I had never done really entrepreneurship before. So
that must have been a challenging transition, though, to go from the years you've had as a W-2 to being able to now be completely self-reliant and independent.
It was. And, my wife at the time, she had her license when we lived in Chicago. I failed to mention that. We did live in Chicago for about 5 years.
Okay.
Fantastic city, by the way. Love Chicago.
Yeah, I do love Chicago, too. Yeah.
It's good. And so she started real estate there, and I was still traveling and all. So when we moved to Tampa, it was like, hey, she was going to do her license here.
Did you move to Tampa because of your job?
No, we had talked about coming back because our family's here. She's
from here. Okay.
She is. And so her family's all here. And so
shout out to Jen, by the way.
Yes. Shout out. She may be watching on this.
There we go. Cool.
Yeah. but yeah, so when we moved back here, it was for family. And so I started real estate full time, 2007, really 8-ish. I don't think I had a sale the first 6 months. And then I had, we're going to get into this about Davis Islands and everything and all this. So I actually had my first, I think it was my second sale was on Davis Islands, right? And sold that home.
Were you really living there at the time?
We were living there at the time. We were. No one knew who I was. I was actually sitting in the office. A person walked in, just happened to randomly walk in looking for a real estate agent. And at that time, people walked into offices. And I was like, great. So met them, had really no clue what I was doing, kind of talked to my broker. We wound up selling that home. And so nowadays, everyone's, oh, you're the Davis Island guy. You sell Davis Island. I didn't have another sale on Davis Island for another 3 years. Not at all.
Did you have sales other places?
I did have some other sales. Yeah, it kept me in. I would have had to come back to consulting and that, but I didn't. And but during that time, and I think this is probably the best thing, is that I really had a grind. And so I was door knocking.
Yeah.
And I was cold calling. And I did any and everything, not because someone told me I had to do that. It was like I didn't know where else. I had nothing. I had no real basis of business to go to.
You got to go get the business.
You have to. You have to. And so walking in a suit down Davis Boulevard, knocking on a door in the middle of summer, we did it. But I always had something that I would give to someone of value. So it wasn't just, hey, are you looking to sell your house? It was, hey, I'm, Cristan, I'm a resident in Davis Island. I'm a real estate agent, but I wanted to give you this. And most of the time it was like a list. It was a little short card that had everything, all the numbers of the businesses that were on the island.
Very cool. Yeah. Great idea.
Something of value. And then, and so over that time, we started doing newsletters, started getting
Hopefully
involved.
your number was on there too.
My number was on there at the very bottom. Yeah, it was bold. And so, but that was really, I look back on it now, and that was just, it made such a difference in my life. It as you know, from your businesses, you
takes a certain type of mentality who's willing to go door to door. I don't care what industry you're in. I've done it many times, and I think it's the purest form of sales for sure. The amount of rejection, no matter what you're selling, even if you're not selling anything, you're just trying to give this stuff away for free. Just going door to door, you're going to get rejected no matter what it is.
No matter what, you know it. The expectation. So when you actually get something, you're going to get rejected most of the time. So when you get that, someone's actually listening to me. And talking, it's a good feeling. It keeps you going.
Absolutely.
It does.
So, again, because you came from this other background, corporate background, W-2 background, and then find yourself diving right into this really, I would say, one of the harder ways to build your real estate business, door-to-door efforts, and really true direct sales, right?
Yeah.
What was the keys for you, Cristan, to finally get traction and feel like, you know what, I can see this actually being something I can do as a career? I'm sure you had a breakthrough somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on it, I think it was just the consistency of kind of knowing, I guess at the time, having confidence in just my abilities. Like I was always able to be a good problem solver.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could figure stuff out, and it took me a little longer than others, but I could always figure something out. And so I probably did more of the hard deals in the beginning. I mean, when it was a piece of land that no one really wanted, and then I'd figure out a way to sell it, and it may took longer, but it got done. And so, as you move forward in real estate career, you get those experiences, you're able to apply those to the next one. And so for me, I think the breakout time was probably when I got a call. I'm trying to think of what the year was, but I got a call and they were like, hey, I heard that you're the guy on Davis Islands to go and sell properties.
That's a good thing to hear.
I was floored.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it's, but it was just, and this isn't like a year or 2 years. I mean, this is over years.
Sure.
And so, I am very
How many years did you do the door-to-door approach?
I did that probably from 2008 to, I want to say it was about a 4-year thing.
Now, was that always in Davis Island or mostly?
Most of it was, but then I started moving into other areas. But I felt like the door-to-door was great for that, but I didn't have that one little piece of that connection with those, because I would go to a different, and it just didn't have that. So this way I could say, hey, I'm a resident here. And I was involved, and we were doing a lot of different activities. And I think that's like the key.
People like to work with neighbors.
They do. And someone that they trust. And I think, so that was it for me. People always say, hey, what do you, what's your best thing or whatever? I mean, I really feel I'm genuine. And I think it comes across when I'm having conversations with clients on listing their home, or we're talking about something very serious regarding, hey, should I make this offer and what should the amount be? And, obviously real estate's one of the biggest decisions people are making.
Yeah.
They have to feel like you're coming from an honest, genuine perspective, not just, hey, I need to get this sale done.
Totally.
And it's hard when you're starting.
Do you feel like that decision to commit to that door-to-door philosophy, right, and approach for the amount of years that you did, was that the biggest distinguishing factor in eventually having you be known as the Davis Island guy or realtor, or were there other factors?
There were other factors.
Yeah.
So I was heavily involved in the Civic Association events and activities. We were promoting and putting those together. We were doing a lot of raising money for the island and being involved in a lot of the civic issues that were going on. And so as people saw me in that capacity, then they started saying, oh yeah, and you're also doing real estate. And so that's how, I think that's how that development really occurred, was you have to be engaged. I mean, I think if I just walked door to door, I think that would have been fine, but you have to get intimately involved in some of these areas.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, again, especially because you are a resident, so I'm assuming a lot of this stuff mattered to you too, even just from that level. Yeah. How important, in your opinion, do you think it is, Cristan, for an agent to pick an area like that and to have like a geographic, well, I guess in the industry you'd call it a farming area, right? So how important do you think that is for somebody to really kind of hone in on an area like that?
So the market has shifted just in general over the decades. So I think, and this is probably 6 or 7 years ago, people weren't really calling it this, but I really got hyper local. And I think you need to be a hyper local agent. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be hyper local just to a specific neighborhood, but maybe a couple of neighborhoods or South Tampa or, Lakewood Ranch, or so those areas, I think you need to be there because that's why people want to use you as their expertise. They want to know you know everything going on.
They want to know that you know something that they don't about that area,
exactly.
Right?
And it's not just anyone can say, hey, this is the square footage and this is the beds and baths and it's great, it's new construction or whatever.
Right.
But they want to know, and particularly with the changing in the market, right, where you have more of these you have that separation between buyers and seller agents, and they want to know, what am I going to pay and am I getting that value for it?
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to.
No, I mean, to me, it makes all the sense in the world to brand yourself as the go-to person, right? Guy or girl, man or woman, for a specific area, or doesn't even have to be a geographic area necessarily. It could just be a type of client, right? Like we've interviewed agents who really specialize in working with military personnel, right?
Absolutely.
Or senior living, right, is another category that we've interviewed people that's where they get the bulk of their business, and they really are become known as the go-to person for that, right? Yeah. And I just think that's really smart business in general. Have a niche that hopefully has some sort of tie to something you would like to serve, and I think it has to come from that standpoint of serving, right? Yeah. First, that's the mentality. And a lot of people do it geographically, which is obviously how you've done it with Davis Island, and it pays off, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
It doesn't. That's absolutely true. And it's a good point you make. You have this center base, but then you need to break out from it, right? But you always have that one center base that you can come back to.
Yep.
And I think it's just important.
What if somebody is maybe even a newer agent and they're still trying to identify that for them, right? Yeah. They're trying to figure out whether it's a geographic thing or another industry that they want to become the person in. What do you think are some keys to look for? Are there certain demographics that you looked at that you wanted to see in, how many homes Davis Islands had, for example, and what that was worth, and how many homes you feel like you needed to be able to serve to really get the business you wanted to get? What are some things you looked for that you thought were important?
Yeah. So I wish I was that. I wish I was that.
It wasn't as broken down like that.
It wasn't. I wish it was. But I do think you have to have some type of passion. You have to have some type of desire to it, because if this is what you're going to be doing, if you really like, you hear about it all the time. If you really love skateboarding, right? You're in the skateboard, then focus on that, see where that can take you. And there may be 3 or 4 different areas that, hey, I'm involved in people that are involved in skateboards and BMX biking and surfing, right? And so it can expand, and it's all extreme sports. So now you start meeting these people that are in extreme sports. I'm just using that as an example.
Sure.
But it's you have to have some type of, or the car guy, those things, it just creates and sets you apart.
Yep.
I think that's what you need in a business, that it's not like there's only 10 agents.
Totally. Well, it's interesting because when I told you earlier off camera that we have this community that we've been working on building called Top Producers Nation, right? And it's really built, the principles of that community are built on 4 steps that I elaborate on our website and everything. But the first one of those 4 is identifying your USP, your unique selling proposition, which is what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Like whether that's a community that you're going to serve or, whatever it is, there's got to be something that differentiates you from the fact that, let's be real, it's not very hard for most people just to get a real estate license. So if you're just any other agent, there's no difference between what you bring to the table versus what the other 17,000 licensed agents in Tampa Bay are saying that they're bringing to the table, right?
Yeah.
So what is that distinguishing factor that makes you different, that's going to help you stand out? Every top producer that I've had a chance of getting to know over the years has something like that, even if they did it unintentionally.
Right.
But somehow they identified that was something that got them to the next level. And it's so important. I think a lot of agents who struggle, they don't really get that, or they try to do so many different things because there's all these different people that have been successful in other ways, and they don't really hone in on their way,
That's right.
Of how to make that work. Yeah. So I know that, how long did it take you till you started working on the team building side and open? I know you now have your own brokerage.
I do.
And so tell us a little bit about that genesis, that evolution.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. I would say if someone came to me and said, "Hey, what do you need to work on? Like, what do you constantly like?" I think I need to learn better leverage. Like, I'm just not a good person that leverage. To go out and hand something to someone to go work on, I have a hard time letting go. And so it's been a very, very long process for me. And I think, to be frank, that's probably what's held me back in certain respects, because you need to be able to trust that the process of leveraging and building a team of people that you trust. And so now that I've been in the business for so long, it's great to go after that multi-million-dollar deal and get it closed. And I love it, and I would never change that. But to be able to work with someone and get them started and see them progress through it, like, that is such a great feeling.
Yep.
And so it was that piece that really drove me to try to bring on, to go out on my own. I felt like I really needed to break free from the typical brokerage that I have, start our own business.
That was a couple years ago now, right?
It's been 3 years. And I had been thinking about that. I had my broker's license well before then, but just as a broker associate, and then say, can we bring on some people that maybe they got their license, they've been there for a year, they're kind of not really doing much, but they want someone who's been there, done that, can help give them some more information on it and help build that and be part of a group, be part of a team that they want to be part of.
Is your goal now, Cristan, to grow the number of agents on your team, or to just kind of work with the agents that I think you have 2 or 3 right now? You said, right?
We do. Yeah.
So are you focused just on trying to support them more than the number of agents, or what's that look like for you?
The agents that I have were experienced agents. One had been in the business for a long time, gotten a title, and now is coming back into the agent. So they understand sales and they understand that process. And the other one's been an agent for a while. So I do want to expand into more agents. And so we're looking to find the right folks that would fit in there and be open to building and growing. And, I'll tell you this, Don, I listened to podcasts. One of the podcasts I listened to is a Hard 90 podcast. It's kind of related to baseball and sports, but he was talking about, people want to know really the difference between, it's a little saying, there was a boy sitting at the table with his father for breakfast. I don't know if you've heard this one. And he was having breakfast. And he's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm in school and I'm having a hard time understanding the difference between commitment and contribution." Right?
Is this the pig one?
This is it. Yeah, you got it. So how many times has it been said on here? But
no, not at all.
Okay. No.
Go ahead and finish it.
He's like,
I didn't mean to ruin it.
I
have heard it before. Yes.
Ruined it. No. So he said, I have a hard time understanding that. And he goes, "Well, look at your breakfast plate. Right. What do you see?" And he goes, "Eggs and bacon." He goes, "Great." And he goes, "And so the chicken made a contribution, right? But the pig had commitment."
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I bring that up, only because I think you have to have full commitment. And going out on my own with the brokerage, I had to have full commitment to take that process and now bring on people that I'm going to be committed to them to help build them.
Yeah.
Because I could go and do what I'm doing by myself for for as long as I want,
sure,
and it would be fine.
And you are still in self-production as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a balance there between serving your client base that I'm assuming you're not doing as much door to door today as you were.
No, I haven't gone door to door in a while. But,
so is most of your business referral based now?
It is. It's referral based, and we've moved our business, so it's really interesting.
And you're doing over 20 million a year on personal production,
right? Correct.
And
correct.
Plus whatever the team is adding
the team brings on top of that. Yeah,
right.
And so it's but I think for me, it's now that I'm starting to really work with people and start to groom them, it's just more. It's exciting. It's exciting. It's almost like starting over a little bit. You know, and doing that. And so
I've always been a huge fan of building teams. It's something that I've done for my sales background too.
Yeah.
And obviously we've interviewed a lot of different agents and brokers on this show that some of them have all different sizes of teams, right? Yeah. From just a few agents to 50 to even hundreds of agents in some cases. And there's a lot of different levels of lessons that you learn based on the size of the organization that you're trying to scale.
You do.
From what is one takeaway that you think that you've learned in the last 3 years about being a broker that's related to working with people and helping to try to get them to that next level? Is there a takeaway you feel like you've been able to pinpoint that says, all right, here's a lesson that I maybe screwed up on or something I did well, and I want to make sure I can learn from that and build from that?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing and I'm still learning this now, is they need to take a risk, and they need to put themselves out there. And I think that's the thing that I probably didn't do early on. I mean, I took a risk, obvantly, starting
as their leader. You mean
in.
Like challenge them?
Yeah. I mean, they challenge them. I mean, go in. I mean, go and talk to those people that you aren't sure if you're going to want to talk to. Commit to doing this as a full-time job if you're going to do it. I have 2 referral agents, but they're not part-time agents. So we're not really, meaning I don't train them they're not part of that. And so I think if you're gonna do real estate, you need to commit to it full time. And for me, it's hard.
If you want to be good at it anyway.
Oh yeah, you want to go. Right. Yeah, I mean, you can mix.
There are a lot of people out there who just do a onesie twosie here and there.
Yeah,
and they're content with that, I guess. But if you really want to be a producer,
a real producer, then you need to do that. And so I think you have to be able to commit yourself, and you have to be able to take a risk.
That makes sense.
And it's in. I see that now, and now.
Do you see the path for you being that you're always going to balance production with your own client base and team building, or do you see that changing?
So where I've moved my business, obviously I'm in production now. Definitely would like to get those folks to where I am from a production standpoint, and I've gotten really my interest now and my passion is kind of in development and being involved in what I talked about initially. Why I was interested in real estate is in the investment side. I do a lot now in new construction.
Okay.
And so that's just, I just get excited about it. I love walking through properties. I love talking about design. I love talking about seeing it go through, okay, we're running into this issue. How do we solve it? So my goal ultimately is to have a solid team that is producing, they're enjoying it. I can help continue to develop it, but I'm moving out of production and more into that development and investment side.
Nice. Yeah. Now, is that for your own portfolio, you mean, or for clients?
Yeah, so both. So I do both. Yeah. So, and I mean, longer term, I think the probably more so for my portfolio on it. But I mean, we represent a lot of different builders, and we have a number of developments going on, and I love it. I love walking when they're pouring concrete, and it's just exciting. It's exciting. And I
the beginning of something special, right?
Yeah, absolutly. You see it. You see it.
What percentage now, Cristan, of your business has evolved outside of Davis Island?
So we're right now about, I would say we're 50-50.
Are you? Okay.
So yeah, it was before I was probably 70-30
in Davis Island.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
But we've been able
to. So as the business has grown, you've been able to branch out.
Yeah,
and obviously
absolutely.
Connections are going to take you there too.
Yeah, and that's it. The connections are going to take you, and people see the value. One thing that I think is important, and it came to me is, we talk about cold calling, and we talk about. I give an example. So when I was starting out, I did a cold call to a for sale by owner, and I called him. He was not really open to much. He was going to sell it himself, his daughter's house. And I said, hey, no problem. Called him again about 2 or 3 weeks later. Called him like 3 or 4 times. Finally said, hey, why don't you come over? I'm renovating my daughter's house, and we are going to sell it, but I'll just talk to you. I don't want to use an agent. So talk to him. He's like, hey, by the way, when I met him, he's like, hey, I have a gift on my door from another agent. They said how great this was. But, we talked about it. He said, I want to go with you. He goes, because you're so persistent in calling. And I said, I appreciate that. It was great. It was actually over in Hyde Park. So got that listing. That listing alone turned into 8 other deals, not just with that person, but because I had that listing, I wound up selling that individual home, a buyer and seller 4 different times. It led to me meeting a developer who saw the work that I did on that one home and couldn't believe I sold it for the price I did and hired me to sell another 3 new construction homes.
Nice.
So it's just important. I mean, you never know where something's going to
you really don't.
take.
You never know what one connection could lead to.
It does.
Right.
And it's amazing, particularly in this business.
That's why it's a relationship business that we're all in for sure.
It is.
It makes a lot of sense.
It is.
A couple things on the personal side, just for people to get to know you again a little bit more. So on the, what do you guys love to do? I know we talked a little bit off camera about your son's into baseball still. And so what keeps you guys busy with hobbies, interests, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I don't have as many,
when you're not jamming in real estate.
Oh, no. Well, and that's one thing. Like now I'm at a point where I'm able to enjoy it, right? Like that's what I think most people want to do,
right?
Is be able to ultimately.
That's the point of becoming a top producer, isn't it? Right. Is to actually have a lifestyle.
Have a lifestyle that you can enjoy, and so and that's what we do. So my son's at an age he does a lot of travel baseball. We're involved in that. I love going to his games. I love going to his practices and seeing what he's doing and involved in. He's going to be going into high school soon. My wife and I we like to travel. I mean, we do some traveling, want to do more of it. And I think we'll probably do more. Love golf, love working out, Peloton. So those are the things that we spend our time with. Our family's local too. So we spend a lot of time with family. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I'm not a painter.
Keep yourself in great shape. Looking like $1 million over here. But Peloton's working for you.
The Peloton's working, I guess. Yeah. But I am starting, and I've always wanted to play guitar. And so I've said, hey, I need to do it, right? I postponed it for too long. So that's
Did you used to play, or this is all new?
No, I played just a little bit, but I always said, hey, when I retire, I'm going to play guitar all the time. And I'm like, time goes fast.
It does. It certainly does.
And so you need to take advantage of it while you can.
That's awesome.
So that's it. So those are the things that I'm doing outside of it.
So if someone wants to get on your good side, just get you a guitar or some sort of.
Well, my wife hates it. So with my wife, so she gets so frustrated with me because I will go to every now and then I'll look if there's like a rummage sale or something, and I find a used guitar.
Yeah.
And I get it. So we have probably, I don't even know how many guitars we have.
They're all out of tune.
They're all out of tune.
Just collecting in the garage.
And I'm collecting. She's so frustrated with me. She's like, do not bring another one in this house.
When you leave the house, she throws another one out. You don't even realize.
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know. So, but yeah. All
right.
That's it.
So you have a book there. I wanted to mention it because, let me ask you this way. What is one book? It might be this one, but what is a book or author or seminar that you feel like has made an impact on you personally or professionally?
Okay. So I'm going to start. I love to read, but the books that I love to read more are autobiographies and biographies.
Yep.
So the sales books and the motivational books I do enjoy, and I've read them all. Mm-hmm. But I do love the autobiographies, and so
Me too. I think you can learn so much about people's stories through that.
You totally do. You really do. And so the one that I loved, it's Ronald Reagan, American Life. Mm-hmm. And that one, to understand someone who went from the upbringing he had to the whole movie star thing to becoming a governor.
Quite a life.
It was unreal. And so that, Benjamin Franklin, obviously now with an Elon Musk and Phil Knight and those, but those get me going. Cause I'm like, man, those people did it. And they did it at all different levels of their life.
And they're just human beings just like us. It's amazing to show what's possible when you just are intentional and have focus and are very driven.
It is. Yeah. And so, but to the book that you mentioned, so the first book I read, so my dad, when I was 14 or 15, he initially gave me a Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I wasn't quite sure about that one, but I did read that and I enjoyed it. So I read his books, but then he gave me Think and Grow Rich, right? And so,
what a classic.
So many people, it's such a classic. So it's all yellow and nasty, but when I looked at it, this was produced in 1960. So this was actually his book that he gave to me. And at the time, I obviously didn't appreciate it at that age, but over time, and I read this, I probably read this every couple of years I read it, or at least I'll look through it and see some of the
so many great principles in there that still are true. And so many people have written things kind of as spin-offs of what the principles are, right? In that book. But if you haven't gone through the old school stuff, you can't go wrong with it.
You can probably find one of these on like Amazon or something. I'm sorry.
Totally. You totally can. Many versions of them.
Many
for sure.
versions of
Absolutely.
them.
It's a classic.
Changed, so,
do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
Oh my God, that's a great thing. So I was a kid of the 80s. So I've probably watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off like 900 times, and I can repeat it. All the John Hughes movies, from 16 Candles to
like those rom-coms, huh?
I just love them. I think they're hilarious, and so I try to have my son watch these things. And
it does feel like, I guess it's just a sign of us getting old, right? But the thought that they don't make movies like they used to make them.
They totally don't. They don't.
That's probably just an old person saying right there.
But I guess that is.
It's actually how I feel. I don't know.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like you go and see them now, and I'm with my son, and I'm like, what did they really? Oh, that's what. At the time, it didn't seem bad, right? But there's
some meanings behind.
There's some meanings behind it, but I didn't get it. And my parents let me. I turned out, I think, okay. So,
Do you said you mentioned that you travel a little bit. Is there a favorite place that you guys like to go?
We really are trying more and more to get out of the country. So we went to London. We hadn't been there in a long time.
Nice.
From Chicago, so we're really trying to take my son to a lot of the places that we have gone to. Okay. So Chicago, Boston. My sister lives in both New York and LA, so we go there. We're probably going to wind up going. We've been to Italy a number of times, so go to
Very
Italy
cool.
again with him. So, we don't have a consistent place. We'll go down to Anna Maria. Mm-hmm. My in-laws live down there, and it's a fun place.
Yeah, I spent about 10 days in Italy. This was years ago now, but I fell in love with everything about the Italian food culture. It was just awesome.
Where'd you guys go?
Rome and Florence. Those were the two main. Yeah, I love Florence. Yeah. Rome was triggered just because of the history. Yeah. And I do love history, so there was a lot to see there, obviously, but it's obviously very touristy as well. Yeah. But yeah, I felt like when you were in Florence, you really were in Italy.
Oh, you are. Yeah. It's just beautiful.
Totally.
It's just
totally different experience.
And
so you have one son? You have one child?
I have one son. One son.
And he's
I do
13.
have two dogs though. So those are like three kids really. But yeah, so we've been involved. That's, you mentioned, we like to give back, and the pet area has been.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if there's a particular charity that you got that has been a big part of your overall branding, because I know that's been important for you guys.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I would say in the pet rescue area, so a little background. So my mom passed away when I was 16. Mm-hmm. So she passed away from cancer, and that had a big impact on me. Probably drew me out of my shell more and more because life is obviously short, and that had an impact. So
I can relate because my father passed when I was 19 from cancer.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
And so very much it made me a totally different person.
It did.
Yeah.
It completely did. And so so getting involved with the American Cancer Society and in that area has been something we've done, and very cool. I think it's just important and necessary.
Totally. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, especially if you're building a business in today's environment, finding a cause that you can get behind, I think also helps you in a business sense, right? Because it gives you something that you can, that's not the reason to do it, but I think that it does, people want to, when they're attracted to your business, they also love the fact that you have a particular cause that you can get behind, and hopefully people will follow suit, and want to support that as well. So we're going to put a bow on our episode, and cool. I feel like there's other things for sure we could be talking about, but for somebody who might want to just pick your brain a little bit, maybe there's somebody who's like thinking about this whole switch to a brokerage, and that's something you went through 3 years ago, and you're still growing and learning and adapting and building your brand, or everything we talked about regarding like identifying a niche, whether that's a community or a geographic or non-geographic type market. So is there a way that somebody should reach out to you if they wanted to pick your brain a little bit more? Yeah,
absolutely. So they can reach out either my website, so CristanFadal.com, or on Instagram, so Cristan Fadal Real Estate. So either of those will, at Cristan Fadal Real Estate. So those, reach out to me there, and love to help and talk. And, particularly, I think I probably made every wrong decision initially starting out. So I think there's a lot of things I learned.
Though,
yeah, it is. It totally is.
I got one last question for you. I call this our legacy question. And it's about that time when hopefully many, many years from now, you're sitting on your rocking chair and you're looking back on what you'd want to be most remembered for, right? What type of legacy you'd want to leave. Yeah. What are some thoughts that come to mind for you about what would be most important for you?
Yeah. So it believe it or not, it's not business. It really isn't. I would love for people to really say, hey, he was a genuine person. He cared about me. And at the end of the day, he brought some light and something good into my life. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it. So whether I sell $50 million property or it honestly doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think no matter how successful you become, the idea that you've made an impact on other people is what most people are ultimately driven by, even if they don't necessarily recognize it.
Yeah.
And especially as we age and start thinking about those things of legacy, I think that's where it all lands eventually, right?
It does.
And real estate obviously is a great tool and a vehicle to be able to fulfill that. Yeah. So we're going to end our episode the way we always do, which is a challenge to the audience. So if you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube or listening via any of your favorite podcast platforms, there's like 15 different podcast platforms that we're on. If you don't already subscribe, by the way, to our podcast, just click the little button below you. That way you'll be notified every time a new episode drops, which is weekly. We drop an episode every Friday morning with Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. And so what is one action step that you can take from our conversation today with Cristan that would propel you forward personally or professionally in a positive direction? I'm a big proponent in taking action, right? There's got to be something that you can do from this one conversation. Maybe it's, hey, you know what? This was kind of inspiring to hear his focus on Davis Island and how he literally went out knocking doors to be able to get his brand out there first and got involved with nonprofits and charities and other things to build that brand. Maybe there's a neighborhood like that in your area or that you've been eyeing as you need to start identifying this is going to be my niche. I want to be the go-to person, right, in that community. Maybe you just need to pick up a book that Cristan recommended, like Think and Grow Rich. But do something, right? Take action in some way that's going to help propel you forward so that the time that you invested in listening to this will be worth it and will cause a ripple effect of some positivity in your results, whether that's professionally or personally. So we will see you on our next show and next episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers. Again, check us out at topproducersnation.com if you want to learn more about how to be a top producer in your desired market. We'll see you later. Bye.